You know,
I can
like,
call off the ones I know it's not.
so I didn't do it.
That letter I gave you that showed the park, can you tell you a little bit about where and some of those are? Essentially what you want to make it.
Butter.
Butter.
Stuart,
I didn't expect them to be all of them.
That is something that will just fall into our lap.
It's a lot of butter.
And I will
Salt.
try to still find some for yours.
I've not on salted.
It might be Monday at 4 o'clock.
Did it talk about this?
Yes.
We recorded? Okay.
Recording and live.
Okay, good evening. We will call the meeting to order. Would you stand for the pledge to the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. It's the town clerk to do the roll call, please.
Councilman Coleman.
Here.
Councilman Allen. Here. Councilman Maddox Jackson. Councilman Smeeza. Here.
Here. Our first order of business tonight is a public hearing on the 2024 preliminary budget. Before we open that, I just want to take a second and give Kate the floor to talk about this Saturday's Veterans Day event. And
Okay. So I know I've mentioned it, a project that I've been working on for the last couple of years, was updating the town of Rochester honor roll. And after compiling information from previous board members and the 1942 town board, I am really proud to say we have 727 town of Rochester residents that will be honored on Saturday. We have the fire company hosting a pancake breakfast from 8 to 10:30. It's free to all veterans and spouse. It's $8 for anybody else, but those proceeds will go towards the Hometown Hero banner project that we're working on. And then we will have a service at 11 a.m. at the town Veterans Park, where we will do the unveiling of the honor roll.
do you have the times for tomorrow? Because of course I took that flyer and left it on my desk. So tomorrow, even though the buildings are closed, our recreation department volunteered to be here. They are doing a hearing testing with particularly for any veterans who wish to come from 11 to 2. And that's being conducted through the county. They're doing it other places, but our recreation director volunteered to host it tomorrow, so we thank her for that. And also, we have a special workshop meeting scheduled for Monday, November 20th at 6:30 p.m., which will be after tonight's public hearing, will be the time the town board considers making any amendments to the budget and adoption of the final budget for next year. So with that, we will call the public hearing to order on the 2024 preliminary budget. I have a brief PowerPoint to share with the Zoom and the members of the public who are here. Okay, so the 2024 preliminary budget. Here we go. First, about the budget process. In September of each year, budget requests are submitted by the supervisor to the department heads. By September 30th, the supervisor, as the budget officer, then prepares the tentative budget, which is based on those requests and is filed with the town clerk. The town clerk then has 5 days to present that tentative budget to the town board. Then the board, and I'm sorry, I've got to minimize my screen here so I can see my own screen. The town board reviews and we can make changes and adopt the preliminary budget. And that was done on the 26th, I believe, of October. The public hearing must be held before the Thursday after Election Day, which happens to be tonight. Then after the public hearing, the town board may make changes, and we must adopt on or before November 20th, final budget for the following year. The assessment process, that starts on March 1st of the prior year, when the tentative assessment roll is set by the assessor. That is also the due date for all exemptions for the year. The assessment year runs from July 1 through June 30th. I'm not sure exactly why. Maybe Kate knows why it runs on a different year, but it runs on that. Partially, I guess, because the school districts follow that same cycle for assessed value, and theirs are in September. But the calendar, doesn't follow a calendar year. It follows July 1 through June 30th. The end of May, there is a grievance day where any residents can petition the Board of Assessment Review to consider changes to their assessed value. The final assessment roll is then established on July 1st. As of July 1st, 2022, our assessed value for the town of Rochester was $958,283,806. As of July 1st, 2023, we are at $978,094,987, which is a 2.07% increase in value. That was not due to a revaluation of any kind. That would be changes to parcels where somebody did an addition or made changes. It could be corrections for errors that were discovered. It could be new construction. So that added up to the 19 million approximately addition. Currently in 2023, 77% of the taxes that Rochester residents pay goes to the Rondout Valley School District. 15% of the taxes you pay go to the Ulster County. 2% fund the general fund town taxes, and 6% fund the town highway taxes. Those are approximate percentages. And then about 1% does various, 1 to 2, I would say, does various ambulance district, lighting districts, fire district. It's probably fire district is in the neighborhood of about the same 2%. So I would say probably roughly 5% of those taxes are maybe fire. In 2023, Rochester, and I apologize, it's very hard to read. It's a screenshot out of the county assessors, but it's us bragging a little that Rochester has the lowest town taxes in Ulster County. And it has been 2 years running. And prior to that, we were number 2 for a considerable amount of time. Marbletown and Rochester have the two supervisors have a friendly rivalry of who's going to be the lowest, and we kind of bounce back and forth. And Gardner has almost always been 3rd. In 2023, for a $300,000 house, the county uses a $200,000 house. I've upped it to a $300,000 because valuations are increasing these days. Rochester, for a $300,000 house this year, would have paid $618.85. Marbletown would have been $643.28. Gardner would have been $695.46. All the way up to New Paltz, which is $3,019.35. Admittedly, New Paltz has a police department. They have a fire department that is funded through the town. So there is certainly explanation of why their taxes are so much higher than ours. In 2024, what is being proposed will raise that same $300,000 assessed property to $640.11. That is a $21.26 increase, or a 3.3% increase. The percentage may sound high, but when you're dealing with a low number, it's a fairly low number of the increase. These are the amount of taxes to be collected by the two main funds, our general and highway fund. Currently, we collected $484,367 for general. Highway, which only primarily gets revenue from taxes or state funding, required $1,494,936. In 2024, it is a 5.44% increase for the two combined. The general taxes, you'll see, are only going up slightly over $9,000 for the amount to be appropriated, $493,726. Highway is going up approximately $98,000 to $1,593,255. The tax levy cap, if you've heard about the 2% tax cap, the 2% is a total misnomer. It's a really bad name for it. It's based on a very elaborate formula that the state created that includes cost of living. You also get credits if you've been under the tax cap in the previous year. And so you can be under the tax cap and have sometimes as much as 5 or 6 or 7% increase. You can also be over the tax cap and have less than 1% increase. I've seen both happen. So we are currently between general and highway. We are under the tax cap by $167,494. However, last year, or excuse me, this year, we established an ambulance district for this year was year number 1. Next year will be year number 2 to fund EMS for our residents. It is paid for through the town to the ambulance squads. We contract with them for their services. Rochester is the ambulance district that is managed by Cohasset Accord First Aid. The High Falls district is the portion of the town of Rochester in the High Falls area that Marbletown First Aid covers. They have asked for $189,000 and $23,000 respectively. When you add that into the total amount of taxes collected, we currently are exceeding the tax cap by $44,506. The board still could make further changes and get under that tax cap before the November 20th. But once this public hearing is concluded, we will be having a second public hearing on giving us the ability to exceed the tax cap if we find we need to. If we have the public hearing and we don't exceed the tax cap, we just had a public hearing that we didn't need to have. But better that you have to have it before you can adopt a budget that exceeds the tax cap. So now breaking it down a little bit, the general fund. I wanted to call this to attention. Between 2003, which is when I've gone back and tracked every tax rate, every expenditure, every revenue source since 2003. In 2003, the general fund taxes collected were $667,000 approximately. We are proposing $493,726, which is 26% less over 21 years. To me, that's very significant that our taxes over that 21-year period for the general fund. Now, I'm not talking about highway. Highway continues to rise, and for the same reasons, all our own personal expenses rise. Price of fuel, price of machinery, price of parts, price of vehicles. And again, highway is funded primarily with taxes and state funding, whereas the general fund has more ability to think out of the box and find other funding sources. And I'm going to go into that in a little bit here. This is a chart of that 20-year period that I told you about. Real quick explanation, because I'm sure you can't read the description. The green line that's moving across is the revenue. And you will see we had pretty steady revenue, a little up, a little down, and then it has increased significantly since 2020. And it started on the upswing since 2015. The expenditure side, you will see, has stayed pretty much consistent, up and down a little bit. It has risen a little bit lately. Sometimes in order to get money for revenue, you have to spend money. So that's why the expenditure side is also increasing. The general taxes is the black line, goes almost straight across. And that is the illustration of exactly what I said before, where we are now less than we were paying in 2003. The non-tax revenue is the dark blue line, which is the tax revenue that is not funded, not secured by taxes, or the revenue, excuse me, that's not secured by taxes. You will see from 2014 on, a lot of that is grants that the town is applying for. Some of that is the addition of the solar and the cell tower leases. But you will see the town is bringing in considerably more money from other sources other than taxes. And then finally, the fund balance, which is kind of the our savings account. You will see in 2014, the town was just about broke. I can tell you that equates to about $83,000. We are now at about a $2 million fund balance, which we all believe is probably higher than it should be. And because of that, we are dedicating $500,000 of that fund balance toward the budget to reduce taxes for this year. So the budget itself, the expenditures are going up approximately 170,000 from last year. The revenue is just slightly less, $18,000 less. That is a little bit, sales tax projections from the county are not as high as they have been. Mortgage tax, which is a tax that's collected whenever somebody buys property and uses a mortgage, that's projected to be lower. Our building department funds for building permits are projected to be a little bit lower because people are not building quite as much as they were over the last couple of years. So there is a 6.1% increase in spending and just about a little less than a 1% decrease in the revenue. This is a bit of a breakdown of what the revenue is. The taxes make up 17% of our revenue. The fund balance, that 500,000 that I talked about, is 18%. Sales tax and mortgage tax are equal at 11%. The solar cell tower rent on the left-hand side, the green, is also 11%. Department income, that's various fees by the building department, the recreation department, code enforcement, town clerk's office, any fees that we collect for services, that makes up that 15%. The 5% for permits that's where it's building permits and things like that. We get about 4% of our revenue from cable, from Spectrum, who collects the franchise tax on your bills from Spectrum, and that is turned over to the town. And then we are taking out a loan this year, which will account for 6% of our revenue. We are planning on doing a revaluation of our properties. One has not been done for quite some time in the town of Rochester to balance the valuation of all our properties. We are borrowing money to do that because it will be at least a 2-year process to finish it. So we will borrow money and we will pay some of it back next year and some of it back in 2025. But rather than footing the bill just from taxes. Expenditures, 45% of our expenditures are general government operations. Employee benefits make up about 17%. The recreation department, which is both youth, senior, and adult, and they do an amazing job, is 11% of our expenditures. The environment is our code enforcement. Excuse me, the environment is our transfer station. Planning and zoning board are covered under that. They make up about 12.5%. And the rest is relatively minor. Community services is the cost of our code enforcement office. And any other services that are based for the community. The proposed taxes will be at approximately 50 cents per 100,000 assessed value. This is actually a 0.13% decrease from this year. And for that $300,000 property, it is a 20-cent decrease in your taxes. So basically, general fund is flat. I'd say we could pretty much say it's a 0%. Now moving on to highway. The expenditures have risen considerably at 1.1 million, and I'm going to go into why in just a minute. It's a 45% increase in spending. If you saw the headline in the Daily Freeman that said, Town of Rochester 25% increase in budget, that is correct. But the part they didn't mention was the 98% increase in revenue. That is essentially almost doubling our revenue for the highway from this year to next year. This is why. 760,000 of that revenue is coming from New York State. That it will be for Bridge New York funding for the Boyce Mill Road Bridge that is in design phase right now. It's been an ongoing project that we applied for in 2021. We got 2021, 2022, 2021. We got noted in December of 2021. 2022, we selected the engineering firm to design and to manage the project for us. They are in that phase right now. And it will be constructed in the spring of 2025. They will, once they finish the design, it has to go to New York State to approve the design. We then go out for bids from contractors sometime probably over the summer or early fall of 2024, and construction will start in 2025 and be finished in that season. The reason this is needed is the weight limit on that bridge has been reduced considerably. The metal on the bridge did not weather well and has a lot of scouring. Currently, I believe it's limited to 4 tons, which means a school bus, a fire truck, an ambulance, our own town plow trucks, the oil delivery trucks, anything that has high weight cannot go over that bridge. New York State does not normally award these grants to smaller bridges like this. However, we made a real big case of the importance for emergency response and for the need for the town for that bridge, and they did fund that bridge in that cycle. So that is why we're seeing this uptick in both revenue and expenses. The highway, you will see the same financial history. Similar, the red is the expenditures. You will see a lot more expenditures over the last couple of years. That is pretty much since the pandemic, and that is the rising cost of operating our highway department. The revenue is the green. It was kind of flat and goes up and down and up and down and then sort of increases. The taxes were pretty flat and have risen now since 2018. Again, the cost of operating. The fund balance had decreased considerably to the point that in 2015, it actually went below zero and was, the highway department was essentially operating on general fund funding. It was restored back. We have had to dip into it a little bit over the last few years so as not to raise taxes all in one chunk. And you will see the non-tax revenue is pretty stable. And again, that's a result of that the highway department doesn't have a lot of revenue sources. The revenue comes mostly 16% from CHIPS. That's the state highway funding for road. The Bridge New York grant that I talked about earlier will be 20% of our revenue. Property taxes is 41%. We are going to borrow some money this year to buy some new equipment. Also, the Bridge New York, you have to pay the bill and then apply to get reimbursed. So we need that bond to give us the cash flow to be able to spend the money on the bridge to then get reimbursed. And about 2% of miscellaneous revenue. On the expenditure side, 24% of the budget is the bridge. The debt that we will take on is 21, or excuse me, that we will pay is 21%. We will pay back most of the money we borrow, excuse me, in 2024, once we get the money back from the state. So we will borrow it, we will spend it, we will pay it off before the before 1 year at a nominal interest rate. General road improvements that are capital projects, that's resurfacing of roads, guardrails, things like that. That is 12%. Employee benefits are 13%. Equipment, that's the purchase of new equipment, is about 10%. Snow removal is about 6% of our budget. And brush and weeds, which is tree trimming and various things, are about 2% of the budget. So the taxes, when we're talking about actual taxes for the highway fund, it is a 4.4% increase, which equates to a $20.68 increase for that $300,000 property. So that combined with the general fund, which was a 20-cent decrease, is the $300,000 property for general and highway combined will pay an additional $20.48 over this year's taxes, which it's less than 50 cents a week. Ambulance district. Again, we're raising the 189 and the 23. This is a 6.1% increase from the existing. For that $300,000 property, it will be $60.46 for the Rochester district. That is a $3.47 increase over this year. Marbletown and the High Falls district, it's a much smaller district. They were in need of some additional money, but it's only an additional $7,000 in taxes. However, it equates to a 46.7% increase. It will be a $30.98 increase from last year for a total of $97.42. But essentially $1.80 a week to be able to make sure an ambulance is going to show up. And finally, I want to say thank you to the residents of the town of Rochester for listening to this. In past, we've had a great turnout for budget meetings, and I thank our two people who are here tonight. So with that, I'm going to open it to public comment for anyone who wishes to speak.
I will. Mike, as the budget administrator, great job on this. This is another outstanding budget for the residents of the town of Rochester. Having the lowest millage rate in the county is something to be commendable, and it showed at the polls on Tuesday. So congratulations on re-election, as well as you, Aaron. And we will miss Adam as his long time being around and doing a great job. But we appreciate what you guys do every day. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm hoping that we will still be the lowest. I have hope that we probably will be, but it's hard to say. Marbletown is always very competitive with us on this.
It's difficult to put a budget together, and you guys do a good job. So
Thank you.
congrats.
You wish to make any comments?
No.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I'd ask them for a motion to close the budget public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we will open the public hearing on local law 11 of 2023. We've scheduled a public hearing. I have a copy of the local law for the board members here, and my apologies, I can read it because it is a very short and sweet. I should have made copies for the public.
It's like the air conditioning.
I did.
I'm like,
It did feel like it. Yeah. It is a tax cap override pursuant to General Municipal Law 3C. It's the intent of the town board of the town of Rochester, County of Ulster to override the real property tax levy limit set forth in General Municipal Law 3C5. General Municipal Law 3C5 authorizes the town board to adopt a local law overriding the tax cap by a vote of 60% of the town board. The town board of the town of Rochester, County of Ulster hereby overrides the real property tax levy limit as required by General Municipal Law 3C of the town fiscal year 2024. And then section 4 is the severability, which basically states if any clause or part of this local law is found by a court to be invalid or unconstitutional, that the other parts of the law will remain. And the effective date is upon the filing with the Secretary of State. So I will open the public hearing. Does anybody wish?
I just came to observe.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
I'm
Nothing. Okay. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing for local law 11?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, so we're going to close the public hearing portion of the meeting. I'll ask you to bear with us for a minute. We have to change the meeting on the Zoom to our workshop meeting, which is the second agenda. And so I ask for a motion to close the public hearing portion of the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.